related to this.
Okay, I think everybody's ready. We got everybody here. Welcome to tonight's Town Council meeting for Wethersfield. Today is Monday, December 5th. Councilman Biggs, would you do us the honor as the Veterans Liaison?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Sue, would you please do us the honor of attendance for tonight?
Thank you. Councilor Biggs?
Present.
Councilor Carbone?
Here.
Councilor Forrest?
Here.
Councilor Hill?
Here.
Councilor Lesser?
Here.
Councilor O'Connor? Councilor Pentelow? Deputy Mayor Mazzarella?
Here.
Mayor Rell?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And as some of you may have noticed, we did have a monitor set up for Councilman O'Connor. He is away on business, but actually sick tonight as well. So I just talked to him, and he just couldn't get on with us tonight. He sends his apologies for that. Councilman Pentelow is out of state, and there was hope that he would catch an earlier flight and be here for the 7 o'clock meeting. Unfortunately, he's still tied up in travel. So as you can see, we are down some members tonight, but they would like to have been here for the full discussion on the items on today's agenda. Thank you to the Veterans Commission for coming to full membership, and I see Rachel Mattioli, Town Staff Liaison, and everybody's smiling. I've heard nothing but great things about Rachel. She took over for Mary T-Bolt, who retired earlier this year, but we all have our full confidence in Rachel, too. You're in good hands with that. So I think, Doug, are you going to present on behalf of the commission and maybe announce some of the commission members that are here with you tonight?
Absolutely. So we can bring the magic screen down. Let me just first say by saying thank you, Mayor Rell and members of council, for giving us some time on your agenda. I know you have a busy evening, as you do every town council meeting, with lots going on, so time is precious. We appreciate it. Also want to say thank you to, I feel like we have 2 town council liaisons. We're very fortunate, both Ken Lesser and Ryan Biggs, for setting this up with us today. So we're glad to be here, and we will do so make sure I got this right. Do some introductions in just a second. I'm Doug Shipman. I'm the chairperson of the Veterans Commission. If we have not had the pleasure of meeting before, we wanted to take an opportunity to update you, as we are actually required to do annually, to the town council. And this is the agenda of the things that we'd like to discuss relatively quickly this evening. And we'll get right on to the introductions. This picture shows some of our motley veterans crew with members of the Troop 85 Boy Scouts. So we'll talk about some of the things they did just recently. This is at a recent Veterans Commission meeting, and some of these great folks are here with us today. So first, let me introduce the commission members. Our Vice Chair, Rick Newell, who many of you probably know already, is not able to be with us tonight. Our Secretary, Sandra Rhodes, and folks, just stand up so everybody can see you and we can thank you, or sit down and stand up as quickly. Frank Sina, Mark Rudowitz, Jennifer Glick, Trish Giscombe, and our alternate. We're allowed 2 alternates. Laura Bloomquist is our 1 alternate. We have 1 vacant alternate seat, so if you know anybody, please let us know. So thanks, team, for being here to show support tonight. These are the commission members. Now, not with us this evening are 2 student representatives, and we're very fortunate to have great support from Wethersfield High School. Sorry, I work in Windsor, and I work with the public schools there, so I will probably say Windsor about 4 times tonight, so I'll just apologize in advance. Wethersfield Public Schools relationship is great. We have 2 student representatives, Anthony Kaplan and Hamza Sisik, who are both seniors, one of whom is aspiring to go into the military, and the other one is being worked on by every member of the commission that maybe he too might consider a career in the military. I want to mention a few other people. Of course, I've just talked about our town council liaisons, and I want to give a quick shout out to Ken Lesser, because this is a new commission, as we'll discuss. When the commission was established, I think Ken was the one who ended up recruiting the commission members, and I want to say did an outstanding job, not because I'm on it, but because what he selected was a very diverse and representative group of veterans and non-veterans who had knowledge of veterans affairs. And that's critically important, because not only is our town becoming more and more diverse every single year, but the veterans population across the country is incredibly diverse. And it's really important that your Veterans Commission represents the veterans population. So hats off to Ken. We take that very seriously, and every time we look at new members and recommend new members, we keep that in mind as well. It's really important that we represent our community. So town council liaisons we've talked about, and then town staff liaisons. Rachel was just called out a moment ago as our newest liaison from the Parks and Rec Department. We've had 3 liaisons from Parks and Rec, actually 4 if you count Kathy Bagley, who stood in for a few months in the interim, going all the way back to Sal Kucha, who some of you remember as the Assistant Director of Parks and Rec. So every one of them has done a fabulous job, and Rachel, no exception, has jumped right in with both feet. On the other side, of course, what is often not known is the human services side of the town staff that also supports the work of the Veterans Commission. Christine Taylor, who retired after 37, 38 years of town service, was our stalwart liaison from the human services side, Veterans Services, and she's just been ably replaced by Danny Rosario, who's also jumped in. So we're really pleased to have great support from the town staff. The commission could not do its job without that incredible support. Very quickly, for those that weren't here in 2018, the commission was established at that point in time to advise the citizens and the town council, but also to coordinate actions of the 2 existing committees that were ably staffed by volunteers and town staff to run the Memorial Day Parade and the Veterans Day ceremony. So the role of the commission was kind of a coordinating role, but also not a clearly defined role in some, we didn't get approvals like the Historic District Commission that we had to vote on or anything like that. So we'll talk about how we figured that out as we go along, and certainly subject to your input and guidance. So we want to talk a little bit about what we've done in the 4 years since we've been here. And these are the folks that have done this stuff, along with the town staff and many others. And we'll talk about each of these very, very quickly. We had our very first, I was just looking at the commission minutes for our very first meeting back in December of 2018, and we very quickly agreed that we needed to get some planning done and also do an assessment. So we started the assessment right away in 2019, finished it up just as the pandemic was coming in 2020, and that report has been presented to you previously as members of the council and is provided again in your packet. What we felt it was important to do is not only look at research data from the field, the Veterans Administration, census data, but also do our own survey. And we surveyed 216 Wethersfield veterans, and these are the people that did the surveying. We intercepted them. We interviewed them face-to-face. We supported by the library, who allowed us to do surveys there. So we found our population of veterans mirrors the national population of veterans, which allowed us to draw some relevant conclusions. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you see, what did we learn? Well, first of all, from the census data, we don't know exactly how many veterans there are in Wethersfield, but it is estimated that there are around 1,300 veterans. The largest groups, as you may know, are the Vietnam-era veterans and what we call the Gulf War to present veterans. Sadly, the World War II and Korea-era veterans are all but gone. There are only a few left. We honor them at the various events that we hold, but there are fewer and fewer in number. And in truth, the veterans population as a whole is shrinking every single year. That's sad. It's also a very good thing if you think about people sending their loved ones off to fight in armed conflict. There are fewer of those now than they were in the past, so that's a good thing. Probably the most important thing we pulled out of both the national data and our own data here in Wethersfield is that only 40 to 60% of veterans really understand the benefits and services that are available to them. There are a lot of benefits and services available to veterans on the national level, the statewide level, and even here at the municipality. But people just don't seem to know how to connect to them. So that really helped shape our mission and our role. We also found that fewer than half participate in town events, the Memorial Day Parade and the Veterans Day service. That's something we wanted to address. And also, surprisingly, there is no veterans database that we can draw on to pull down the veterans who live in Wethersfield, which is a little surprising because I get a lot of junk mail and somebody knows I'm a veteran, but apparently we're not able to figure that out. So we don't have a consistent database. We'll talk about how we've worked around that problem. We created annual goals based on this needs assessment. You can see them here. We'll talk about them a little bit and what these goals really mean. Of course, the very first bullet there is providing information about the services and benefits that are available to veterans, because that's really the gap. So we defined our role not so much as creating new services, but as helping veterans connect to the services that already exist. And so it's very much a communications and coordinations role. A couple other items here, fostering youth involvement. That is not specifically a part of our charge if you go back to the town council's charter for the commission, but one we felt was vitally important in helping young people understand what veteran service is, and something that, again, Ken Lesser felt was really important as he kind of rallied the commission in the early days, that we do more with students, and we have taken that very seriously. Want to encourage participation in town events, connect people to the town services that are available, and then build awareness that there is in fact a commission and what we can do for them. So the very first thing we did, and Frank and Jennifer are the editors of this fine publication, we started a newsletter. And why, you might ask, would we want to do a paper newsletter in this digital age? Well, I just told you who our veteran population is, right? They're older Vietnam-era veterans. They are in the 70s, their 70s, right? Some of them might be in their late 60s. This is not a digital, they're not masters of the digital universe. Paper is the way to reach these people, and those few World War II veterans. So we opted for a paper newsletter that goes out twice a year with information about veteran services and benefits. We also do send it out digitally to leadership within the community and those that have provided their emails to us so we can send it out. So there is an electronic version, and it's on the town website and so on. But it's a paper product, and it's mailed out to those addresses that we can find. We do this in cooperation not only with the Parks and Rec staff, but the assessor's office. And as you may be aware, the assessor's office coordinates the veterans tax, property tax exemption program. And a lot of veterans have figured out that exists, and so they have 900 or 1,000 addresses of Wethersfield veterans. And if you think back to earlier, there's about 1,300 of them altogether. So we've got a pretty good chunk of those veterans on a list from the assessor's office. We take that list, massage it, turn it into a mailing list. That's the magic that Rachel and her crew do. We get great support from the assessor's office, but also the Public Schools Transition Academy, who helps with the handling of the postage and stuffing envelopes and all that kind of stuff, and that magically goes out twice a year. That costs about $500 an issue for us to produce, but we feel it's important money well spent in terms of getting information out to our area veterans. Talk a little bit about some of the collaborations that we've engaged in to promote our mission, to advance the goals that we had. And kind of starting from your left, you can see that's actually our most recent collaboration with Troop 85. If you didn't see one of these signs around town, maybe you weren't here, but they sold dozens and dozens of this really great sign, and the proceeds went to the Veterans Commission. So they raised over $1,000 in donations to support veterans activities, and that was a Boy Scout-led project. We're really excited about that. that. We've partnered with House of Heroes. It's an organization, nonprofit. Our real role is providing them the names of veterans that may need assistance so that they can harness the support for those individuals with home improvements and other work, supported financially by a local financial services company, Johnson Brunetti, who many of you may be familiar with. And we hope that that continues into future years. And then way back at the very beginning, we started doing coffees for veterans. That kind of had to slow down because of the pandemic. It was not really good to bring aging people together in small groups over coffee, but we hope to start that back up again. And through partnership with Dunkin' Donuts, we had our first coffee, and you can see there we got some pretty good participation, both from the veterans and from Dunkin' Donuts. As I mentioned earlier, probably our biggest collaboration is right here in town with the Wethersfield Public Schools. And this is part of a coordinated effort that the Board of Ed decided, about 2 years ago, that school would take place on Veterans Day, so it would no longer be a school holiday. It's still, of course, a national holiday. That brought students into the schools so that they could then spend time engaging with veterans and learning about veterans activities. And there was a real boom for the Veterans Commission and the Veterans Day ceremony doing things with students, really helped advance that mission. And I think the public schools leadership would tell you it really is great for the students as well. So where we used to have the veterans ceremony out front here in Town Hall, and we'd get the band would come play from the high school, now for the past 3 years we've held the Veterans Day ceremony at the high school. In fact, this year it was right out front. Many of you were there. We had not only the band, but we had students, teachers, parents, we had veterans, we had every branch of the town government was there in uniform. We had, as you can see from the pictures, hundreds of people. It's probably the largest Veterans Day ceremony this town has held in our memory, probably since one of the wars. So that's really a great achievement. I think kudos to Rachel again for pulling all that together as she did so nicely, and all the people that supported it. I just want to draw your attention in the very center picture there, the bottom center picture, you see 2 young men standing by a wreath. Those are our 2 student representatives who helped with the laying of the wreath. So they've been jumping right in with a variety of things to promote this. So this is our Veterans Day ceremony. I don't have pictures of the Memorial Day parade, but we had our first in-person Memorial Day parade in 3 years this past May, and hope to continue that again this coming May. I know Rachel's looking forward to coordinating that as well. Just got over a Veterans Day. And then finally, I'm talking fairly quickly just to move through this, and I hope that you may have some questions as well. We held our first ever veterans seminar, and this is an effort to bring some of that information to our veterans. We had great support from veteran services organizations from the United States Veterans Administration to the State Veterans Administration to including our own assessor's office and a number of other nonprofits. 15 total VSOs, veteran services organizations, came out to support. We held it at the Pitkin Center. They gave briefings on their topics, and they also provided direct service, so people were actually able to open a claim right there at the center. So we got about 40 veterans. We hope to do it again. We did survey all the participants, and all of the veteran services organizations said they definitely would support it again in the future. We think we may try more of a regional approach, though, and that is the thinking, as some of you are aware, with veteran support, partly because the population is shrinking. So a lot of the veteran support organizations are also shrinking, that you adopt a more regional approach. Newington, Wethersfield, Rocky Hill, maybe Glastonbury coming together with our daughter towns and bringing them in. Did I say that? That might be a more effective way to bring more veterans together, but bring them together here in Wethersfield if we can. So looking ahead, what do we hope to do? Again, pending the guidance of Town Council, we hope to continue with the existing programs, services, and collaborations that you've seen, increase the communications through social media and other methods. Expanding volunteerism, it's really important. As I said, it's volunteerism across the board is shrinking, right? Not just in veterans issues, but in nonprofits in general. It's an area that we need to focus on. Continue partnering not only within the municipality, but regionally, And then assessing the impact. As I've talked about a couple surveys we've done, we really feel it's important to evaluate what we do, to see if the money's well spent, the time and energy is well spent, and are we meeting the mark in terms of providing the services that our veterans need from us. So very finally, a couple issues. Volunteers, as I mentioned. Back in the day, the Memorial Day Parade was led by volunteers who helped coordinate many of the activities of the parade. Now, the heavy lifting really is done by town staff. The same is true of the Veterans Day ceremony. We'd like to see more veterans and more volunteers step up to help coordinating those events, whether they're members of the commission or members of the two committees that organize those. So we'll be working on that. The budget, we certainly appreciate the town council allocating funding for the Veterans Commission this year. We hope that down the road we can find a way to not only support the Veterans Commission with municipal funds, but also ensure that the Memorial Day Parade and the Veterans Day ceremony are fully supported as well. One of the things that I think we prided ourselves in as a Veterans Commission is we don't just bring you problems, we try to bring you solutions. And you may know that we have raised a fair amount of private support to support veterans organizations, veterans activities, through our organization. Things like the Boy Scouts, we've had some private donations, members of the commission have donated money as well, because they feel the work of the commission is that important. So we will continue to support the things we briefed you on with town dollars as well as with private dollars if necessary. And finally, just the veterans' contact information. We're not giving up on that. There's got to be a way. If the marketers can figure out how to reach all of us as veterans, then there must be a way for a legitimate Veterans Commission who's trying to serve their population to reach out to veterans. So we will continue working on that as well, because we want to reach not just a percentage of our veterans, but all of our veterans with the information that they need. So thank you all. I want to say, any comments from the peanut gallery? Did I miss anything? No, okay. We covered most of the things we needed to. We certainly want to open up for any questions that any of you may have as well.
Great. Thank you, Doug, and thank you, commission members, for all you do. Any comments or questions for Doug or the team? Kenny?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Doug, excellent presentation. Thank you to you and the whole commission, to Councilor Biggs, who was co-chair for a while and did an amazing job. You know, when we started this in 2018 and the council approved it, I don't think we thought you would get this much done. So it's a credit to your leadership and to everybody who served with you on the commission, and helping veterans in town, and 1,300 of them, getting access to these services is really important. So, number one, a big giant thank you. Number two, and you had it in your last, and just the question, you had it in your last slide, but what can we on the council do to support your efforts on the Veterans Commission?
Sure. No, that's appreciate the question, and certainly appreciate your support as well, and the support of all the council members. So many of you have come up and said, well, you know, my father was in the service, or this, that. So everybody has a connection to veterans, right? They're in your families, they're your friends. So whether there's 1,300 or 2,000 or 3,000, we're all connected to veterans and owe them a debt of gratitude and our support. And I would say just keep doing what you're doing, Ken. You know, I think I look around at the events that we hold, and you're all there. You're showing support, which is deeply appreciated. Every commission that comes before you probably asks for help with volunteers and funding, so we're one of about 100 probably asking for that. We realize that. Our efforts to bring solutions, not problems, but we do appreciate the financial support. I think that's important. If we can, we took a little money out of the Memorial Day Parade Fund to support the Veterans Commission. If we could find a way to make sure the Memorial Day Parade and all the flags on the tombstones and everything are funded fully, that will certainly be helpful. But those are the types of things that we need. We don't look for a lot of guidance and support. We're all a bunch of military people. We got a mission, and we're going to drive on with it. So if you think we're on the right course, then let us know. If you think we need to alter our course a little bit, let us know that as well.
Thank you, Doug. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. speaking on behalf of one of the council members in 2018 that voted to create the commission, I too, just like Councilman Lesser, never envisioned how far progressed the commission would go. And it is, a testament to the hard work of not only you directing them and leading them, but to the members as well. I think I was the first liaison. I think at that point they kind of combined Memorial Day Parade Committee and the Veterans Committee together. So I had to wear two hats, back-to-back meetings with some of the commission members and with Mary at the time leading the charge. Actually, it may have been Sal, believe it or not. I think Sal was doing it. And then the first event that I was privy to was the House of the Heroes event that the Veterans Commission, the town, and Johnson Brunetti co-sponsored. That was a real eye-opener at least for me, being on that, seeing some of the struggles that veterans have in town. And I know it was no easy task to pick exactly who the beneficiary of that service day was going to benefit from, but it was a great coordination and collaboration between the town and the commission to help those. At that point, I think it was two residents here in town, and then it went beyond that, I think, over the last couple of years. So I hate to say we have to, continue to do it, but it is a service that unfortunately is needed, and the Veterans Commission as well as the town step up for that. So we do appreciate the hard work that you guys have done with that. And we'll keep an eye on the budget. Trust me. You said 100 boards and commissions. I don't think there's 100 boards and commissions, but there may be 100 or more people that want a little piece of the pie. So
Undoubtedly.
but we'll keep an eye on that. Anybody else? If not, great. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
And thanks for the service to the town. We really appreciate it. Moving on the agenda, we do have a hearing under public comment. This is the hearing for the Emergency Services and Protection. I think this is what we brought up last week that we actually have to have formally voted on. Is anybody here for that hearing that's looking to speak on behalf of either the town or the public on that hearing? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll close that hearing and move to general comments. We do have the first of two public comment periods. I remind folks that you are limited to 5 minutes in the first, 5 minutes in the second. Talk on any issues of pertinence to the town. Yes, sir.
Nick Rashu, 125 Walcott Hill Road. Town Council, thank you for your comments last time we were here, first and foremost, and secondly, thank the veterans. And thirdly, say that I'm very pleased that the police officers involved in the accident about, I guess, a week and a half ago now were okay. I want to talk today on the SCBA purchase. And in looking through, the one thing that caught my eye, I guess, are two things. The first thing is at the bottom of page 19 of your packet. It states that there'll be $37,088 since ARPA funds can't be used for FEMA grants. That's related to an allocation or appropriation that this town council made in 2020 related to the fixing, I guess, the repair of engine 11. And last time I checked, we're almost at the end of 2022. And the fact that there was an earmark out there that there was no overrun, there was actually extra money sitting there for 2 years, to me is unacceptable. This just sort of has a waft of what happened in 2015 in this very town, where the superintendent of schools at the time spent $730,000 that, again, it was determined that he had the capability to spend. Whether or not that money should have been spent and allocated that way was up to question. So I would request significantly that there's a look in seeing if there's an earmarked amount, where the money actually goes, and somebody should have caught this sometime in the last 2 years. Even in late 2020, I think that's unacceptable. Next, I would say in looking at the NFPA standard, the lifespan, I, for the life of me, cannot figure out how this town deals with capital expenditures. We've got breathing apparatuses that, to my understanding, the lifespan isn't 20 years, and nobody thought before this year to replace them. It's shocking to me. We have a town truck that I heard weeks ago about all the repairs and how we can't get parts. Talked about mowers being replaced. Every business I work with has an expenditure plan and knows when they have an asset coming out of service or past its lifespan that they have a plan to do something about it. This town seems to have none, which is shocking to me. The concept and what we've heard the past few meetings about police cars, now that we're down 2 police cars, based on what happened a week and a half ago, I cannot fathom the constant need to scramble for funds to replace capital equipment that should have been talked about years ago. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Young?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. Mr. Shipman put on a very nice presentation regarding the veterans, and he did a very nice job, and it appears that they're not one of the groups that suck a lot of money out of this town as a group. We have groups that really take money from us, and hard money from us. And at least the veterans they just get a little bit. They don't spend much. They don't ask for much. But like I say, others ask for a lot. And while I'm talking about others and a lot, Mayor, have we done anything and cleaned up anything on that little red schoolhouse? I remember at the last meeting, it was discussed by the town manager that he had talked to them about a 501(c) designation, okay? Now, these people have been in that Little Red Schoolhouse since mid-1970s. And now, last meeting, it was mentioned that you're approaching them to put up or to apply for a federal 501(c) program, which allows them, if they're selected to have it, allows them a lot of latitude or of advantages over others. And, right now we have a couple real issues going on here. We have an organization that had no standing whatsoever that's been in one of our buildings since the mid-1970s. They've paid no rent. They've had no expenditures because we pay it all. And they're private. They're a business. And I would think to suggest that they become a 501(c) is just going to keep them back in that kind of a position. They should have been suggested to become a company and go down on the Silas Deane Highway and rent one of our vacant buildings and create their own business. Instead, we're going to nurture them to continue to be another non-paying taxpayer. Because when you become a 501(c), you don't pay taxes. You get a lot of advantages, or a number of advantages. And I would think that we would be pushing them to become a real company and get them out of our building and get our building, since we have no use for it, sell it, get rid of it. We have no need for it. We spend, and what's really burns is that they've been in there since the mid-1970s. And every budget year, nobody has ever said a word from the council about those people who are in our building not paying. Yet, we've had years when our council would talk about lean years. But during those lean years, we had someone in there who was not only paying for the use of the building, and they had it 365 days a year, but they weren't paying taxes either. And it just doesn't make sense. And where were our people now that we have a new manager who came in. He approached them and found out that they weren't even legally set up as a business of any kind whatsoever. Whereas if a normal person did that down on the Silas Deane Highway, the town clerk or the assessor or somebody in this town would hammer them and get them into paying taxes. But these people were allowed everything and anything. And on top of that, how in the world do they do business without a business number? You gotta have a business number. You want to set up a political party, you gotta have a business number. You set up anything, you gotta have a business number. Otherwise, the state will come after you. But where was the state? Where was the authority at the town level who was supposed to take care of this, Mayor? To me, that's a disturbing issue. Because how many others do we have like this? Do we? And what other benefits were they getting? Do they have one of those little certificates from the town of Wethersfield so they can go off to some store and buy stuff and not pay taxes? When in fact they're not eligible to do that? Someone should be hammered for that. I call it jail, but we don't do jail anymore. We just slap on the hand and we say, don't do that again. But the fact is, the town is not running the way it's supposed to run. You're supposed to keep an eye on this stuff. You got your assessor's office, you got your clerk's office, you got all these people that should be watching. Obviously, it hasn't happened. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Young. Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to council reports on boards and commissions. Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. Just thanking the Veterans Commission for doing my work for me. I don't have to give my report because you did it for me, so thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Thank you. And seeing none, I think Inland Wetlands unfortunately had to cancel the most recent meeting that they had scheduled. I think it was an application had been pulled from it, and there hasn't been any housing. Now I'm thinking the Housing Authority has not met. I think they have a meeting coming up in about a week. That's it. Mine. Seeing no others, okay. Council comments. Councilman Forrest?
First, I want to thank the town manager and your staff for identifying the issues on Marsh Street and getting at least the worst of it sort of repaired, as we have people entering egress from I-91. It was nice to see that little paving job done, and it helps out. As it relates to the business of the council, the consent agenda, and I'm still learning how we're sort of operating in this world, which I think is still a great idea and can move a lot of our business quickly, is when we went through it for this particular agenda item, was the scuba equipment and some of the bids considered for the consent agenda, but then possibly, is there a discussion between the leaders of each party to see which ones, might be non-controversial and we can throw on that agenda to move the items, or what's the thinking behind that particular one?
So initially, when it was proposed, that the bids would fall under consent if they were non-controversial, but in the final discussion we had with respect to this issue, the feedback I received, and I might be wrong, correct me, was that the likelihood that bids would be pulled meant that we should probably deal with them separately, but other items could go under consent. So at least for the time being, what we did was we moved bids ahead of consent early on the agenda to accomplish the ultimate goal of getting staff in and out as quickly as possible, because there's always staff members here to present bids, and not to put it on consent for the time being, but that we would revisit it later on if the council felt at that point that it's something we can move forward with.
So are we thinking that that's sort of all bids, or like, hey, this one, large number, may want to have some questions about it, versus, maybe another one that might be a little bit more mundane and routine, and the leadership sort of talks, hey, this one seems a little bit mundane and routine, but this other one, and I can certainly see this particular
Sure.
bid is a significant bid. That probably merits a little bit more conversation with the council. Is that the understanding, or is it all bids will just sort of go on the agenda as normal?
Honestly, my understanding is that all bids are just going to go on like this, but I'm certainly, I think there, to your point, will absolutely be some very mundane bids that could certainly fall under consent, but the feedback that I think I received was to keep all bids separate under bids, so that they can be discussed if it's desired. But if I'm wrong on that, I'm happy to discuss that as part of the agenda meetings, and we can move them to consent.
And is the thinking that the leaders of each party sort of get together to sort of figure out what would be a good consent agenda item, or is it not that?
Well, right now, when we do the agenda meetings, I do two. I do one with the mayor and the deputy mayor, and I do another with Ken for representing that party, and Kevin was at the last one too, and any of you are welcome to attend any of those meetings. The idea would be that discussion would happen there, and then those individuals take it to their respective caucuses if necessary to discuss.
To see if what would not be a good consent agenda item?
Correct.
So how about 3A, which looks pretty ministerial to me? The signing and execution of documents over a concept that we've sort of generally discussed. Would 3A be something that would be good for a consent agenda? Was that discussed and sort of?
We kind of shied away from anything that would have a public hearing on that night to not have that be because you don't know necessarily, based upon the feedback that you get from the public hearing, it might logically assume that something might come up that you'd have to have that outside of consent. So anything that has a hearing, we've left as approval of ordinance resolutions would not go under consent as a general rule.
I suppose we could just, if there was a large discussion that occurred, we could certainly just say, hey, heard from a lot of people, maybe it's good if we talk about it. In the case like this, which is maybe the opposite of the scuba equipment, seems fairly ministerial, not any public reaction at all, zero. And I don't think there was any written reaction from the town clerk. This type of thing might be interesting for a consent agenda when it is just sort of the regular goings on. So just some thoughts on that in order to speed up the meeting. And then, of course, allowing us to concentrate on some of the more pressing matters of the day.
Sure.
And then lastly, the minutes. Was there thought about putting the minutes under?
Yeah, so minutes generally will fall under consent. The only reason why these are not under consent was that we knew that at least one member, Councilor Biggs, would have not have been present for those meetings and likely would be present at this meeting. Therefore, he would have to abstain. And if you vote on the consent agenda, he would have to either abstain from everything or pull the item anyway in order to abstain. So just to save that step, we kept the minutes separate.
So as a technical matter, though, there's no requirement that I'm aware of that you have to abstain from a particular minute if you were not or were not.
I don't think there's a requirement, but it's general procedure that one would abstain if the minutes are being voted on, particularly if you're not doing a roll call. If you're doing a voice vote and nobody says nay, it can be assumed that the individual voted on it without the roll call. So general practice would be to abstain, but I'm open to whatever direction the council wants to provide for the minutes, though.
Councilman Lesser?
Just to follow up on the last point by Councilor Forrest. So, Mr. Town Manager, anytime we have a councilor absent, like we have two absent tonight, the minutes will not be on the consent agenda if there's at least one councilor absent. Is that correct as per current protocol?
As proposed, because again, it's general practice that one would abstain if they're at the next meeting and they weren't here for that meeting to vote on the minutes. But
It's not a huge item, and usually we
Yeah.
approve the minutes, but
Yeah.
it's not a big deal, but I kind of agree with Councilor Forrest. I think it could go on the consent agenda, even if one is absent, but just a thought.
Or maybe, I'm sorry.
Just a point on the resolution, and I don't know if Sue would be able to answer this. The FEMA resolution or Emergency Services and Protection Division of our own Emergency Management and Homeland Security. Would that need to be read into the record? Some of them, yeah, some we have in the past. Some state requirements are that they are read into the record. We, by practice, we typically do that just to cover all bases.
Right, sometimes we do. Maybe it would be best to do that tonight for this one, and then as we go forward, we can check to see if there are state requirements when they come up, and if there aren't, if we don't require it, we can just have it in the motions.
Right.
So that the full document is there.
Right. Okay.
I'm not sure if.
Yep.
Clerk has any other.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I'm pretty sure it does. It does have to
That's what I thought.
follow this course.
That one.
Okay.
It has to be stamped and sealed.
Yeah, when it came,
Yeah.
when we had our meeting, I had that in the back of my mind that this would not be a consentable item, as it would have to be into the record. Okay. In an effort to save time, I think we talked about the consent calendar, which is to save time, and it would have taken more time, or less time, to actually vote on what was brought up as concerns. Any other council comments? Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to publicly just show appreciation for the committee that put together the holidays on Main. Unfortunately, I got home last night from military duty, so I could not attend, but my family did, and they had an amazing time. The kids, that's the first thing they told me last night when I got home. It wasn't, "Hi, Dad." It was, "We went to holidays on Main." I was like, okay. And then I just want to thank Derek and his team for their work. An email came back, as some of you have been CC'd in it. I've been pushing to look at the overpass highway over McMullen, just for some deterioration and whatnot going on, and some movement is taking place on that. Obviously, we have to wait on the state, but his team, town manager, you guys kept strong on it, so thank you for that. I promise you the residents on McMullen will appreciate it once it actually starts. So thank you, just want to put it all publicly.
Thank you. Yeah, I was on that call with the company that is looking, and I'll mention that in my comments, to do work, state work on 5 and 15. And actually, Derek brought that up on your behalf, or on your residents on McMullen's behalf. I got on Google Maps, and you can do 360 degrees. And when I drive under it, I kind of only look at the sides. I never pay attention to what's above me. But that has been an issue of the concrete falling, and DOT is definitely aware of it. They've done some patchwork and chipped off some of the loose concrete, but I believe that is slated to be rebuilt or redone in the very near future, so.
I'm sure the boss in my house has addressed me many a times about fixing it, since she walks under it daily. So she has told me I better do something.
So by the sounds of it, coming home, you have 3 bosses in the house. Any other council comments? No, just to piggyback off of what Councilman Biggs said about the holidays on Main. I think a lot of us were there. Every year it gets bigger and bigger. They've done an incredible job. Kudos not only to the town staff, the fire department, the police department, fiscal services, as well as Parks and Rec. They stepped up with the merchants in Old Wethersfield and the Wethersfield Chamber of Commerce for those businesses outside of Old Wethersfield to put on a phenomenal event. It grows larger and larger every year. And just talking to some of the council members up here, a lot of folks from outside of Wethersfield came and visited this year, which meant that, revenue is coming into our local businesses from outside of Wethersfield, which is unbelievable. It was a cold night, but it wasn't snowing, nor was it raining the night before. It really did go off without a hitch, and so proud of all the town staff that put their efforts into making it a successful night. I think that's it. Any other council comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Mr. Town Manager?
Just a couple of items. There is one addition to the agenda. You have it as a handout in front of you. This will be added to the consent agenda with the other appointments, and that is to approve the appointment of Mary Tigno to the Senior Citizens Advisory Commission. So that'll be now part of your consent agenda, and that motion will be included when you vote on that. The other piece I'd just like to mention briefly is that many of you received the notification regarding our community notification system, the new one that's up and running. My thanks to the Fire Marshal, Anthony Dugnati, for all the work that he and Karen Tomczyk have done on this work. This is a major improvement to how we currently notify residents, and I've actually received complaints over the last few months regarding the road work that's been going on, how the notices that go out to warn people when roads are going to be closed and stuff don't go out until the end of the day, because the system that we had previously, you got one bite at the apple every day, and it was scheduled to go out at 4:30 or whatever that was, which wasn't very helpful for somebody if they're coming home from work and they've already hit the closed road. This system will avoid that. Any notices we put out will go out immediately to everybody that signs up, and anybody can sign up, and they can sign up in multiple ways. It can be their cell phones, they can get texts, they can get calls, they can get emails, or all of the above. And they can be notified, they can select what they want to be notified about. If they're interested in certain departments, Parks and Rec type things, but they're not interested in road closures, they can select what they want to hear about and what they don't want to hear about. But everybody that's signed up will get emergency alerts instantly, and that's going to be very important to get the word out to folks. The other advantage to this system is that it also allows the town to utilize it internally to notify staff, to do call-ins. You can select, you can do immediate call-ins for groups of staff members. You can let people know if there's going to be delay at one building or another, if there's any closures. And we can even, for the emergency notifications, we can drill down on a map and just highlight the area of people we want to notify. So a lot of power in the system. It's going to kind of take us to the next level of where we should be for this type of thing. And again, thank you to Anthony and Karen for all their work on this. And please encourage everyone you know to sign up. There's a link on the front page of our website right now. If you go up there, it'll say Community Notification System. If they click on that, it'll take them to a Wethersfield Alert page, and they can click on and fill out all their information. It's voluntary. We don't force anybody into this, but again, it's a great service to have, and I recommend everyone sign up as soon as possible. So that's all I have. Thank you. Yeah.
Question on that, Fred. Will we eventually, move away from the existing?
Yes.
And can we migrate all those people into the new
Yes.
system?
Yes. We have the contact information for all those people that are signed up for that. We will send them a notification asking them if they would like to be signed up, directing them to go and sign up for the new system. We don't want to assume that they want to be on there, and we also don't want to assume which things they want to be notified about, but we will send them a notification saying, this is now available, so please, if you're interested, sign up on this new site.
And eventually, we're going to close the other
Yes.
system? Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And thank you to the fire marshal. I was CC'd on an email today about the communication, and with Everbridge, they are a one-way or a two-way. We have signed up to be a one-way, which means there's no information from a resident who signs up that we get their information, aside from what they want to sign up for, their email address, and whatever else criteria that they need to fulfill to sign up for it. I receive them from Department of Public Health all the time. I think they're a great resource. I think this, I know the state uses them. What did you say? 44 municipalities and a number of other entities use it as a notification. I think more people have a cell phone or a smartphone in their pocket that vibrates to let them know what is going on, more than people who watch the news at 5:30 or 6. So, information is key. Up-to-date information, as town manager had said, those go out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon currently. There's a road closure, water main break, police activity, unfortunately, we have seen, all too familiar with, that information can go out real time, and you can literally just pick up your phone and read it. So I think we supported it when it was brought forth, and it's a great tool for us. With that, Sue, any town clerk communication?
We're currently organizing our post-election data and catching up on our land records verifications.
Okay, great. Under B, council action, I discussed this earlier with the absence of 2 of our members, and I believe some work that needs to be done. We'll work with the town manager on item 4A of unfinished business, the flag policy, just in the sense of, working to make sure that that is correct. I will make a motion to table that for the evening until next meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Now back to council action. Item 1, bid. As briefly mentioned earlier, this is I can't call it scuba. It's SCBA.
No underwater.
Yeah, well, it's the fire
Hopefully.
department, different use of self-contained breathing apparatuses. So I see the chief here and assistant chief, fire marshal. I don't know, are you guys going to present, or do you want us to?
Okay, as you see in your council agenda, this program has been researched the past couple of years. Our current SCBA apparatus and bottles are in the process of expiring after, it's been about 15 years. The packs themselves will not be supported anymore by the manufacturer, and the bottles that we purchased with the packs 15 years ago are also going to be obsolete. The bottles are only listed for 15 years, or they can only be tested so many times in the 15-year mark, then they have to be discarded. The previous administration hired a grant writer 2 years ago for replacement of these items, and the first year was not successful. The grant writer talked with the survey committee and made some recommendations. They rewrote the grant, and at this time we have 68 air pack bottle combinations. The grant was awarded to us for 60, and the reason of the difference is that the FEMA people and the grant people look at riding positions on first due apparatus, not ancillary vehicles. We have 8 assorted ancillary vehicles that we have air packs and bottles in now. That's the difference between the two. If you look at the 2 different quotes and the 2 different numbers, the FEMA grant, with our matching funds is $422,045, and the 8 additional, which would go in the chief's vehicles, the utility vehicles, and used for firefighters that go to training for firefighter 1. That totals up to $105,082. From what I was understood is that money that has been allocated through the ARPA funds has been approved by the council previously, and we're here tonight to push this through and hopefully get your vote of support and start the process to replace these. We're kind of under the gun because at the end of this year, if we don't have a process in place for these replacements, we can be cited by OSHA for not having conforming SCBA units. So between the ARPA funds and the FEMA grant, the total cost of the 60 supported by the grant, and the 8 supported by the ARPA and the town funds. The total package is $522,532. That's delivered to our door, unpacked by the vendor, totally checked out, totally out of the box, put on somebody's back. And probably about, I'm guessing, 4 to 6 month lead time.
Okay. Any questions for the chief? Mr. Deputy Mayor?
I guess I have a question for the town manager on the use of the CNEF funds. And it was my recollection that when we approved the 210,000 for engine 11 or truck 11, that was, there was a cushion in there. And so from what I'm reading, we didn't spend all that money. There was 37,000. Was all that money, how did we get the money into CNEF for that purchase? I don't recall that. When we did it, it was kind of an emergency. We were trying to figure out where that money would come from, and I wasn't aware that it went into CNEF.
Is there any capital expense that, capital money that's appropriated for a specific project? If we do not spend all the money, it goes into capital reserve. And I think basically finance can spend out of that capital reserve as approved by the council projects in either CNEF or the capital listings. So this would technically fall under CNEF. So it's all under capital reserve because it's unspent. And so it's just being listed as CNEF because it's more, it would qualify under that category as opposed to the capital.
And I understand you weren't.
And I wasn't here.
You weren't
but yeah,
here, so, you know, I don't think we had the money in CNEF at the time. That's what I'm getting at. I thought we talked about using contingency or moving money from.
For the fire truck?
For the fire truck.
Oh, okay. That I don't know the history of.
I don't
so.
know how that extra money got into CNEF.
Well, at some point, the entire amount that was proposed got allocated and got put there. Now, how that happened, I wasn't here. I can't give you the specifics. I can get you the details of that, but.
Good enough. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Questions?
Any other questions for the chief? Now, the remaining 8 bottles you had mentioned would go to admin, or not admin, but leadership.
The 2 town chiefs vehicles, the 3 utility vehicles, that would leave 2 more for people to go to firefighter 1 when they go and train up at the fire academy. Because technically, by standard, we can't take something off a piece of apparatus because that makes it non-conforming. So we have those spares for people to go to fire schools.
Gotcha. Okay.
And repairs, if something goes down, we have spares to take one out of service, put one in service.
Then I've been hearing, maybe through the rumor mill, that if there is a truck, say engine 11 has seating capacity of 4.
8.
8.
But it does, yeah, 8. On that one, that has 8.
That there has to be 8 bottles.
Yes.
So every one of our trucks.
Every seating position on a first-line apparatus has to have a SCBA in it.
Okay.
And that's by grant. If we don't purchase those, then the grant can be revoked. So the grant is based on seating positions on first 2 apparatus.
And you carry a spare bottle for each
Yes.
pack? So
Right, so that's
16
you'll see a
bottles on
pack,
each truck? Yeah.
60 and 60, because the pack doesn't come with a bottle, so you put one in the pack and then you have a spare. And that's a requirement of the NFPA standards.
Okay. Any other questions?
One more. Do you, I understood in the past you had a system for filling the bottles?
Yes.
Do you still have that?
We still have that.
And if you had a big situation, you have a method of like cycling bottles back
On our
to-
rescue truck, we have a filling station on our rescue truck.
Okay.
That'll probably fill at the scene 25-ish bottles, maybe some more, depending how fast you fill them, because they get hot and then they have to cool off. And then we go back to the firehouse. There's a big compressor there where you fill bottles separately or fill the filling station on the rescue truck back up.
Great, thank you.
But if we have a big incident, we'd have to probably shuttle back and forth after the rescue truck's capacity is expired or expelled.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there a motion tonight? Oh. Councilwoman Carbone,
I just want to be clear, because
talking to the microphone
in
for
the
me.
motion, it doesn't, I mean,
Yeah.
it mentions where the money's coming from. So are we just accepting this grant? Have we already accepted it? Is this our motion to accept that grant? What is that?
So the motion is to approve the purchase, and it's based upon the funding.
So we've already
It's
accepted
established
that
here.
grant prior?
We've, I don't know if we've officially have we officially accepted the grant yet? I think we have to finish this step first to finalize it.
Yeah, I think so.
And then,
Because
Been
until the match has
awarded.
been applied, it can't be accepted.
and we already approved the ARPA allocation.
So again, yes, there's the ARPA allocation for the additional pieces. We approved actually more than that, so that money will go back into the pot because local matching funds that are required for the grant, even though technically this is revenue replacement funds from ARPA, and we explained that to FEMA, they said, no, if it's anywhere related to ARPA whatsoever, it can't be matched, which is
10%
something
match.
new. So we kind of went through this process back and forth with them. So that's why the finance director recommended the use of the capital reserve, the CNAF funds.
I just wanted to be clear, because I just wanted to, I just want to see where the money was coming from.
Yep.
Thank you. And if we have it.
Right, I guess that would be my question. Do we have to have a motion that includes funding sources, even though the funding has already been, in the case of ARPA, already allocated? Do we need to have the CNEF funds spelled out in the motion? Or because it's part of this agenda packet?
That was my question over here when we were stirring up. Same thing Councilwoman stated. Just because the motion seems very general when there's several different funding sources listed in the packet. So you have a 37K coming from the funds, and then you have what the grant is giving. I feel like the motion should probably detail that out of where those individual funds are coming from.
Sure, you can certainly do that.
Just so it doesn't tie us up on saying, well,
Sure.
you said we could buy it. We didn't get the grant, but you said we could buy it, so. And that's not speaking to our department, that's just
You
in
make the
general
motion and then
for
read
business.
the allocation, and that's fine.
Or per the,
Just as allocated.
Yeah.
As allocated.
In the motion details, it's not great.
Yeah.
Contract award detail.
In the budget source amount detail, yeah.
okay. So I'll make a motion to award the purchase of 68 SCBA units and accessories to Municipal Emergency Services as noted in the council item with budget sources of FEMA assistance to firefighters grant of $384,045, local matching funds from CNEF for the 60 SCBA units of $38,405, and an ARPA allocation for the additional 8 SCBA units and accessories of $105,082.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you to the council and thank you to the veterans.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And thank you for all the work over the last 2+ years on working to get this grant and getting all 68 bottles in service, hopefully soon.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just motion to approve the consent agenda.
Yeah, I guess we can just do the motion to approve the consent agenda. I guess we could have just moved the bid to the consent agenda, as I've been trying to advocate for.
Me too,
I
Mayor.
always pull it.
Well, just after discussion, motion to move to consent. But council action item B2, consent agenda. These are the boards and commissions that are put forth before us. There is a walk-in for Senior Citizens Advisory Commission. All those in favor of approval of a consent agenda, say aye.
Do you
Oh,
have a
I gotta
second?
make it
Do you have, need a motion in a second?
I'm,
Second, I think the mayor made the
Yep, you
motion.
made the motion,
Second.
yep.
motion seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We're all in consent. Council item B3, this is now the official vote on the emergency management. I don't know if Fire Marshal Dignati or
You can give
Karen?
a quick overview.
our two emergency management coordinators for the town.
Good evening. We're here tonight to speak on behalf of the Emergency Management Performance Grant. This is a grant we receive every year from the state. This is what funds emergency management locally in every municipality. This year, we're actually getting some additional funding of $1,300.40 to buy some much-needed PPE. I don't have to tell you about COVID. Most of you were on the council during that time. We bought a lot of PPE at that time. Most of it was reimbursed by FEMA and the state. So even the supplies we had prior to COVID, we went through a lot of it. So this will definitely enhance our supplies to have it on hand. If you have any specific questions on the grant, I have to give credit to Karen because she's really the grant person. I'm more the operational person. She does all the paperwork. So if you have any questions, we're both here and happy to answer.
Any questions for either Karen or Anthony? Seeing none, I don't think we have any action tonight. This has been spelled out by Sue as town manager.
We have a motion. I think we
We
have
do have to read it.
Read the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Sue, are you reading this as the authorizing agent? Or-
He made me do it last time.
Council motion,
I
yeah.
think the council has to move.
Yep, okay.
Where is it?
You want there.
Tom, you didn't do it?
I have the same one, I think.
In the packet, isn't it?
Thank you.
All right. Where I start?
No, I'm not reading this motion, I'm just reading it. This is the
Authorizing
actual
resolution.
motion.
To read this first? Make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the town to enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Energy, Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate, and further resolve that Frederick J. Presley, as CEO/town manager, Town of Wethersfield, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the Wethersfield Town Council.
Second.
And now I gotta read more. Authorizing resolution of the Town of Wethersfield Town Council. Seems like I should skip that part.
On behalf of,
On behalf of the town council, I do hereby certify that the following is a true and correct copy of a resolution adopted by Wethersfield Town Council at its duly called and held meeting on December 5th, 2022, at which a quorum was present and acted. This is really not,
Yeah, I don't think this is,
not what it's,
no, I don't think that this is, the resolution is what you just read.
The first part.
And this is just confirming it, so I
isn't there a
think it's
link to
fine.
this? Or is that-
I don't believe so.
No, I
It
think,
was last.
The motion that was in our packet, the first
Yeah.
part you read?
I think that's it.
Yes, and my apologies, I was looking at council, under the hearing portion where it was first mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to
Just the,
end at the first reading of the agenda item.
Action required. A long convoluted motion has been made.
Second.
That was moved in second, too.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, and thank you for your hard work on this. Matt, did you second, or Kenny?
I did the first second, then
Give
Kenny did
it,
the
give it to
second.
Matt.
But I only did the first half, so, I don't think it counts.
We'll give it to Matt.
I don't know, I think Kenny
No, you
did the
did the
whole.
right half. There was only one half.
There
was only one half.
Oh, no, after you.
Sue's busy, but you can give it to Matt.
Give it to
It's
Ken.
like a snack by two people, you get halves.
Football, that's a good one. It
Okay, yeah.
doesn't matter.
That's a certification. She said.
Is this something different?
We'll take a look.
It's not?
No harm.
Tom thinks that there was another document that might have to be attached. We'll check with Sue later on, after the meeting. Now, did you get the motion in second?
Oh,
Deputy Mayor and Ken?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on, unfinished business, I believe. We've got all ordinances and resolutions done. Unfinished business, item 4B, citizen recognition guidelines. We talked about this last meeting. And there was, and this is where Councilman O'Connor had brought up a concern of, I guess it would be all preliminary information be privy to just the council, or maybe the committee, ad hoc committee that would be making this decision. There was a concern that if word got out that, so-and-so was going to be recognized, and there was hope that, this would move forward, but for whatever reason, they were not chosen, that the information would not be correct, that the intended recipient was to receive this award. I sincerely doubt any of that would ever happen, but in the rare case that a resident would be recognized, they would know the process that would be recognizing them, but unfortunately, due to whatever other circumstances or information that came about through the vetting process of the committee, that person would not be recognized. Is there a way to keep information within that committee from going beyond the committee?
I would say anything that's written, no. It becomes a FOIA-able document, and it's a public document. If the committee wanted to take, unofficial, unwritten nominations as a first step, that would be a way to address it, but then the committee meetings themselves would be open meetings, so anybody that was there would hear it, and it would be out for the public. So none of it would rise to the level of protection under FOIA, so it would, technically everything would be public information.
Okay. Any other?
not sure if that.
I don't have an issue with that. I'm fine with it being out in the public, and if it's, let the public understand what's happening and be privy to the discussions as an open committee. But as a reminder, this is an opportunity to recognize citizens who are doing outstanding things and making significant contributions to our town and our state and our country. And I guess to have a little discussion, even though it appears we might have one of our earliest nights in a long time, and not to be responsible for making it a little longer, but this is important as we embark on recognizing key individuals, was about the committee's makeup. We don't necessarily need that in the motion, but my thought would be,
Added it to the
oh, you did?
2 members from each.
Yeah, so my thought would be 4 to keep the number small, because it's hard to recruit people, and when you have a larger committee, it tends to be more difficult to make decisions. And if we have 4, although I'm okay with 5, but the thought was 4, 2 from each political party. But, if the feeling is to go 1 more, 5, I'm okay with that. But 4 would be the preferred, and a small number. And they would predominantly or primarily primarily be doing this annual award. They would be deciding who in town rises to a level of significance that we might want to award at a luncheon, an annual key to the city or some significant honor. And the committee, which I envision would maybe meet quarterly, but as needed, they would decide, but not that frequently, but just open it up for any thoughts about the committee in terms of the makeup of it. Any thoughts on that? If not, we can, maybe proceed with the motion that says 4.
And Mayor, if I may, I will note, I did make a few changes. I corrected a typo on the first page, and also under procedures D, with respect to the committee, I added language there, as Councilman Lesser just stated, to consist of 2 members, because that's what I heard from several of you, that it needs to be equal on both sides. So 2 members from each, but I also put, I believe it was, I'm sure if it was you, Deputy Mayor, or if it was Councilman O'Connor, but the comment about other types of recognition, like naming of buildings or fields, those types of things might also be something that is considered by this committee, because those are things that come before the council periodically, and to have some kind of a vetting process prior to getting here. It might be an appropriate role for that, but so that was put in as an edit, which you can keep or omit, but I just wanted to try to capture what I heard at the last meeting.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
So I just want to understand how the process would work. So we have this committee of four people. They come up with a name, a person that they want to recognize, and then how does that get transmitted to the council? Like, what I'm getting at is, I wouldn't want to put anybody in an awkward situation of bringing something to the council meeting to vote on. It's probably never would happen, but, you don't want to have somebody out in the public saying, no, I don't think this guy should get an award or something like that. So I'm just wondering how, would that be something that's shared to both sides during like an agenda setting situation or something like that? I didn't understand exactly how it was supposed to work.
I believe that was part of the intent of having 2 members from each party on the committee itself, so that, and then it would be discussed at the agenda meetings, as well as, I assume, at the individual caucus meetings as well.
Okay.
Those would be before it ever got in front of
Yeah, okay.
this body.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
Just a little follow-up to what he was saying. So we would have to vote as a council here on whether this person gets the award or not?
The way it's worded here, yes, ultimately, yes.
Vetted
Yeah.
through a committee.
Based upon a recommendation from a
Based
committee,
upon a
yeah.
recommendation, okay.
You're just approving the recommendation.
Yeah, so it really is very public, whether we decide to do it or not. Not that, I guess when it gets to this point, who's going to really say no? However, I think, is there somewhere you could do this privately? Could you do this in executive session? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not sure we want to stay late, but is there anything we can do privately, quickly?
No, I don't believe that this would I know that this would not rise to the criteria for an executive session.
Well, we could consider it a hiring process. They're the,
We are getting the key.
Steward to the
yeah,
key.
steward of the day, right?
Depends on the cost of gold at the time. That's right. Gold key.
Giving them keys, yeah.
I was just thinking some way to, I understand the concern, having to bring it to council in such a public forum to vote on an individual getting an award. As much as we all like to say, we're all going to say yes, but.
You could take the council out of it. You could say they're not going to bring it back to you. You're going to let the committee make the decision, and then they can keep it quiet as much as they can, and then it just, you'll find out through channels, or you'll find out at the event, I guess. But that's the other alternative, so it doesn't get to that point. Mhm.
Did you, Ryan, go ahead.
I was just, I like the idea of the recognition. I guess my thought process was the 7 of us here being the ones that say, you're good enough. Out of the 27,000 residents or whoever it is, and, the 7 of us are the deciding factors. I think a committee that, this is their, task at hand would be great, but I wouldn't want to be the one that, counselors said that, I'm the best out of the rest of you. Like, I just don't like that idea of it. And I don't know how this works. I know other places do keys to the cities. I don't know how they do that, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around it coming from us as a decision.
Comes with the power of the gavel. The mayor can give the key to the city to anybody. Now, good question. I mean, we're a body of 9 members up here. We've got to make decisions on policy, on purchase of, $500,000 worth of equipment. I mean, we would be the ultimate decider on a flag that goes up or a flag that doesn't go up. Why, rest on.
Feel like that personal aspect one is like a little bit to the other side of things. I don't know. It's just me looking at it. I mean, we want to give recognition and accolades to those that deserve it. Yeah, just.
Right. I mean, I've got some questions or, concerns in my mind. If somebody wants to come in, as we've done in the past, where a child of a resident had been going through a difficult period of, illness, and they want to recognize a certain week or a month of awareness, would that have to fall under this, or is it up to the discretion of the town manager to place that item on the agenda for a recognition of, a type of cancer awareness month? Would that have to be vetted through this, or?
That would fall under proclamations, most likely, yeah. Would just covered under this. It wouldn't be the committee. It would just be the process here.
Okay.
Mayor, if I can. Yep. The thought would be, hopefully, every month or couple months, we would have the mayor and the council potentially recognize, as we do sometimes, through proclamations. There's different levels of recognition as laid out here. Only the, if you will, the keys to the city or the highest honor would be decided by the committee. And I'm okay if you guys feel that should be pulled away from the council, and maybe it goes from the committee to the town manager, and, and it gets finalized that way. My vision of it was, obviously, the recognition was number one, that we'd have some type of luncheon that would honor these folks, and maybe there's 1 to 3 a year who have done something extraordinary, maybe help cure cancer, maybe you're on some national board of something. They just did. And we have residents who have accomplished some significant things, but the committee would vet that and decide, does that rise to the level of some significant, and maybe some years we'd have 1 or perhaps none. Maybe there was nothing in that year to recognize. But the thought was, as other communities do, that we would recognize outstanding, and the committee would just be focused on that piece of it. The rest would be done through these different levels of recognition through Fred and the town manager's office. Hopefully I made that clear. So I guess the question is, do we want to strip away the council approving those recommendations from the committee, or do we just want to accept the committees? And I'm open to it.
Votes on this?
Well,
I didn't see the actual council voting section.
I couldn't find that either, but
I think
that's what I was told.
the town, the recommendations are made to the council. I think that's added in. Do you have that? Yeah, in here. Mike?
But that's for the other stuff, and that they could make recommendations, not that it's a required vote or anything.
This last piece that the committee does.
The medieval tradition.
That's Fred came up with that one. That wasn't mine,
Yeah,
but I'll
it
give
is.
him credit because it was better than what I came up with. But the council.
It's a recommendation to the town council, so that would assume there's going to be a vote, but it's,
We would
and,
up or down.
But I think that,
and in practice, councils vote for all proclamations anywhere I've ever been. They vote for,
we don't vote for all the proclamations here. We
You
don't
don't?
give proclamations all the time. The mayor gives
Without voting
proclamations
for
for
them?
all kinds of
They
stuff.
don't vote
We
on
don't
it.
do it here.
Okay.
Maybe in other communities, but we,
I mean, I don't see this as well, the way it's currently written, because that's important, I don't see any sort of legal constraint about requiring a town council to necessarily vote. It's a process by which names can be presented to this council. Council's, of course, the board that would present these types of things as along with the mayor as the head and the mayor. So I see it as a workable construct which doesn't require a vote. Any council could take precedence over this guideline, which is exactly what it is. So if a particular councilor wanted to put on an agenda a particular thing and get a council vote, that would trump all of it. But the process provides a nice roadmap to presenting to council those individuals. And I wouldn't see it be any different than any of the other proclamations for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Pride Month, right, that we might give, and we don't have a particular vote here because it's an honor rather than a resolution, so to speak. I would like to bring up two just sort of technical objects, two technical points here. The first is the last sentence, that the committee shall consist of 2 members from each political party appointed by the town council for 2-year terms. Now, there could just be a sort of technical aspect that if you're elected, you sit, on that election night, on the night that we are sworn in, we don't appoint these 2 particular people. If they're appointed for 2-year terms from a later date, that's then going to roll into the next year. So you'll technically have counselors, which may not be on council, sitting on the council committee. So there's an easy way to sort of solve that, but
if I may, Mayor.
I yield to Ken Lesser.
No, thanks. The thought was that those would not be counselors, to clarify.
Says party.
Those are parties, so these are folks, not us.
I did not realize that.
So this is people like our other committees, like all the committees, these would be not counselors making these decisions. The political parties would raise a couple folks
Yeah,
to do that work, not us.
okay.
I think you just opened up the door.
That-
Want everybody else to not realize that's what that was.
I didn't see that at first, admittedly. Okay. So this is an at-large committee.
My thought would meet like quarterly, and they would review, come up with names, review things that have happened, but not counselors.
Okay.
Much like a screening committee would do for
Correct.
our current boards and commissions.
Correct.
Second item, then that fixes problem one. Second item would be that I was hoping that we could also somehow have this committee either instruct or work with the town manager to create some type of a memorialization of all the honors that have been received in the past. This is all sort of moving forward in order to help us get a feel for the scoreboard that we missed, the Little League fields, which I believe are named right now, but we've forgotten about those names. Now, that maybe there are not very many of those that fit into that category, but I have imagined that there are fields and streets and whatever that have been named over time for buildings for various purposes, that it would be nice to have some type of a depository of that, of those efforts that have been made over time. And I don't know if that's in concert with the Wethersfield Historical Society, if it's held here or both, but I would like the committee to sort of think about the ability to get that into a place so that we could then continue to ensure that the people that have given a lot to this town, that service is remembered sort of throughout time rather than lost to history. So,
That includes like the naming of buildings. So Charles Wright School is named after presumably Charles Wright.
yeah, and it actually is.
Who is Charles Wright, or who was Charles Wright?
Yeah, a great civil engineer, but that's another. But yes, exactly that. So, and then if maybe if, as we know, buildings are raised or combined, then perhaps that committee would also sort of take into consideration, hey, we had a Charles Wright school, and I'll just bring this up because it was at the last referendum, over time, maybe that school moved, or an Emerson Williams school, but hey, we still want to be able to honor that contribution or that reason, and maybe now we have a Charles Wright Field, or something of that nature. But this would be the committee to sort of not lose that goodwill, whether it's Pitkin or whomever, Costello Field, right, or whatever it is. So that was just, I don't necessarily have the language to do that, but I would like to have it added as at least part of the charge. Sure. And Mayor, if you're thinking about moving this, tonight, I'll get you some language pretty quickly. If you want to hold it off for this conversation, I'm happy to do that as well at your desire.
Well, I just, to go off of what Councilman Forrest was saying, with the members from each political party appointed by the town council for 2 years, it opens it up. I mean, we do have a Green Party, we have members of, various other parties in town. Is there a way to get it to say, shall consist of 2 members from each political party as representative of the council? I mean, we may at one point have 5 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 1 working family member. Let's just, for example. So, what's the makeup of the committee?
Tom, if you...
I think right now, if you look at all our committees, there's plenty of views in there that are, selected by the Republicans or the Democrats, but they're a you. So I think as long as do we have it where the council is selecting those? Mm-hmm. Just like we do any other committee.
Appointed by the town council
So,
for 2 years.
each party, each major party, if you will, gets to put their choice in there.
Kind of this
And,
same process we do now for different appointments to different committees. It's just another committee.
I mean, I just want to speak for myself. I tend to overthink a lot of these things, and this is like a real good thing, and we're, it's kind of like picking away at it, if you will. I mean, I brought up some points that have probably never, ever happened, and it's like, I think, at least myself, I feel like I'm overthinking it, and, I could see where this could work just the way it is. And I like Councilor Forrest's idea of having some kind of document or memorializing all of the various awards and stuff. I really struggled with the scoreboard situation. The family member was a great help, but you couldn't find anything in any minutes. I went through all the minutes of Parks and Rec and those committees and, town council committees. I couldn't find anything solid that said on such and such a date, it was voted that we were going to put this person's name up on the scoreboard. So luckily, we were able to find a newspaper clipping, but, short of that, a lot of these proclamations and different awards, and they get lost over time, so. And, in this person's case, everybody was, had passed, and, people had remembered it vaguely, but you couldn't get any facts. So I think that's a good addition to have some kind of documentation. Thank you.
Councilman Lesser, you had mentioned honorary dinners or lunches. Did you have a funding source in mind for that?
It's a good question, Mayor. I did not, but that's an important consideration. I would thought that maybe the town would pick that up if it's a luncheon and there's 3 people that we're honoring, but the other thought would be that people would pay for their lunch. So, but I didn't think that through, so that's a really good point, Mayor. You're at a level of detail that I was not at, so thank you.
No, I'm just looking at this
That's important.
through a different lens of more government. We have yet another committee. It's for a worthy cause, don't get me wrong, for honoring these folks. And I'm just looking at it is, we can find the money in the budget. I'm sure we could. We have
We certainly could charge for the luncheon, and you guys might remember, I don't want any sitting office holder, counselor, or Board of Ed to get this award, but 20 years from now, maybe it's Mayor Rell getting the award, but if, I'm okay, I haven't thought through these details, if we charge people for the lunch, or if we pick it up for the town. I'm envisioning 3 people, and maybe their families come, and anybody from the community wants to come. But I hadn't thought through if the town paid for it, or if individuals paid for their own meal.
I just remember budget deliberations last year when we were trying to fund the Veterans Commission, their funding, and we were trying to pull a little here and a little there for it. It was
Like we do with some of the town dinners, like the Salute to Business, people pay for their dinner. We could do a nice dinner instead of a lunch, and people can pay. I hadn't thought through how much it would cost on those level of details fully, but it's a good point.
okay.
If you pay for the dinner, can you get a key?
Councilman Biggs?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just saying, we're in the preliminary stages. We haven't really, ironed out all the kinks, but it's something to take note, the mayor's ball. If you wanted to kind of, subsequent some of that stuff, you could slide that kind of recognition into the mayor's ball. Then you kind of cut that cost idea out the way. And it's a grand event. Mayor's ball, you get a key to the city. It's amazing.
It's a nice connection. Are we good moving the general guidelines? Because I think the motion was to accept, or the proposed motion was to accept the guidelines. Is that correct? And then we can, I don't know, Matt, if you want to amend.
Sorry.
Councilman Forrest?
Thanks, Mayor. As it's written, related just to how when we create committees, we never designate a certain number of political parties. And this would be a council committee, I'm assuming. There's a minority representation rule, which is a statute, but you could put as many people on there. So what we are in fact doing with the language, though, is enshrining the fact that people who are not part of a political party can't be on the committee. And so I think we just want to make that tweak at least. But I understand that, and even to say if there were a Green Party candidate or a Libertarian that, was on the council, that would then say, of course, that, well, then that's a person that could be on this committee, and yet the unaffiliateds make up, I think, the largest portion of our whole population, if you were to take the sort of sliver.
Right.
So-
I'm sorry.
You could take the political party thing out of it and just have the council allow, for individuals. I understand that there was a feeling that you wanted sort of that evenness too, so I'm understanding that. It may
Right.
take just a little bit more thinking of this particular aspect, and then another sentence or two maybe for
Yeah.
the memorialization or creating the charge of the memorialization of past recipients of honors.
That's kind of what I was getting at. The committee shall consist of 2 members from each political party of the makeup of the council. But then
Can't put
what's,
you on.
what's to stop a Republican from putting a U or independent?
Or any other political party. And then you have to designate each political party. I think there's just some language that needs to be worked out there. Maybe today's not the day. I think everyone's on board. It's going to get passed in the next 2 weeks. But,
Okay.
just sort of some not hyper-technicality, but technicality to make sure that that it's thoughtfully done.
Right. I will speak on behalf of Councilman O'Connor, who would probably be filling our ear with a bunch of his questions and comments as well. And in his absence, I'll make a motion to table until the next council meeting.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. In general, thank you, Councilman Lesser, for
It's all good.
Great idea.
it is, we've got a number of outstanding folks in our town that have done many things publicly and privately that they've done and not wanted to be recognized for. But for those that come about from this committee, I think we can work towards a goal of recognizing them. I don't believe we have any ordinances or resolutions for introduction tonight. We do have 2 minutes to approve. The special meeting of November 10th was the tour of, or not, we didn't do a tour that night, but a meeting with the Housing Authority. I did get the information over to Sue and Deb Hammer in the town clerk's office on that. And I don't know, well, technically anybody and everybody can vote on approving those minutes, but if you want to do it by tradition, I think Councilwoman Carbone, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councilman Lesser, we were the ones present at that. With that being only 4, does that suffice approval of minutes? Is it a simple majority? Doesn't have to be.
I think for this, yeah, simple majority's fine, right?
Okay.
It says
You don't
5
think
of the charter for any affirmative vote. And I'm happy to vote yes, by the way, guys.
Yeah, I mean, you
Except for a motion to adjourn, I think. There's an
Yeah.
exception. Like, if somebody leaves and you
But
have to.
anybody
stop.
can vote on the minutes, whether you were there or not. Is
Yeah,
that
you're
correct?
not required, nothing in the rules require you to
fine.
abstain. It's,
I move acceptance of the November 10th special meeting minutes.
Second.
all those in favor, whether or not you were there or not, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And then November 21st minutes, that was the last meeting that we had that actually took up a lot of the stuff that we are discussing tonight.
so moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Second public comment period, again, just as a reminder, 5 minutes, and anybody wishing to speak? Mr. Young?
Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. I'll be brief. This discussion tonight about recognizing a person for special whatever, I think you're going down a slippery slope. I think it's something that the town should not get involved in. You know, we talk about money. What are you going to do for lunch or whatever? Is it going to come out of our funds or whatever? Are we going to spend more time? Tonight, we just spent a lot of time on this. We've spent some time on some other issues too. It just goes on and on. It plugs up our agendas. So I think that we should put this to the side and let the news media take care of this. If there's something that somebody did, it'll creep out into the news media, and they will be the ones that make the decision. They're the ones that will put it into the press. They're the ones that will be responsible. I also think, politically, I think it would be an issue politically as well. I think one party will want to nominate their own person, one of their buddies or friends or whatever, and we'll have that kind of a situation. So I really think it's a slippery slope, and we should not get involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anybody else? Seeing none? Is there a motion to, let's see, we got no executive session, I believe, right? So a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying